Do toddlers really need assessments at home or in school? You're going to be surprised at my answer. Yes. An assessment is just a tool to understand what your child knows, maybe what they're learning, and it helps you to figure out what you might want to play more with or teach them about. For example, if my 2-year-old is coloring this picture at the table, no directions were given, I just set out paper and crayons. And he's coloring and coloring and coloring. And I stop by and I say, "Tell me about your picture." He says, "It's a boat and it's in the water." And he points to those things. And I ask him, "Can you add something yellow to your picture?" Now, if he reaches and grabs the yellow crayon and starts to draw something yellow on his picture, I have just made an observation that's an assessment. It's not a formal assessment. It's called an informal assessment. But it is an assessment. If he grabs the yellow, I know that he understands what yellow is. But if I ask him to add yellow and he comes back with pink and starts coloring, then my immediate observation is he doesn't understand what the word yellow is and how to grab a yellow crayon. He hasn't mastered that concept yet. What does that mean? Well, first of all, I would take note of that. And teachers do that in kind of 2 ways. One is called an anecdotal record, meaning they'll keep Post-it notes or like a journal, and they'll just write, "Coloring today, asked Bob if he would grab the yellow crayon and he grabbed pink." Then they might make a note, "Remember to practice the color song next week." And so the teacher will continue to reinforce the concepts of color throughout the next week, months, and years, and do continual observations and assessments of that child to see if they're understanding what yellow is. Another thing that teachers might do is use a checklist. I've created an easy preschool assessment checklist that I've used in my classroom and with my own kids. Now, it's informal. It's a way to just kind of jot my ideas and observations of these assessments. So if I asked him for the yellow crayon and he gave me pink, he does not have that concept mastered. I would not do anything with my checklist. If we're coloring and I say, "Can you add something yellow?" and he grabs the yellow crayon and he says, "Yellow duck," then he has the understanding of yellow. So I would come under the section where it's color words, and I would say that he knows the yellow color. And I would write down the date. What that means is I don't need to assess if he knows that again if he continuously demonstrates an understanding for yellow. If he didn't, then I would continue to teach it and reinforce it and then come back at another date. That's just one way that you can assess if a young child knows colors. You could play an I Spy game. I spy something red in the room and see if they can go point to it. You can bring out a bucket and say, "Okay, we're gonna fill this with red objects from around the room." You can let the toddlers go around the room and collect all sorts of objects. Now, you have to be careful with that assessment because if there's lots of children and they're all bringing red, children pick up on clues, and so they might see that, oh, he's got something red, and then they might match it. So then that's a different skill. That child would know how to match the same colors versus being able to identify it. So in conclusion, are assessments for toddlers and other young children essential? Absolutely. As parents and teachers, we often give assessments without even thinking about them. And sometimes we file them in the back of our memory, and sometimes we use observation checklists or anecdotal records to keep track of those observations.